This is K.M. Weiland, and you are listening to the 227th episode of the Helping Writers Become Authors podcast. The new year is upon us. For me, 2013 was a wildly busy year, what with writing storming, switching both my sites over to WordPress and New Designs, and seeing Structuring Your Novel published, as well as the Japanese and Korean translations for outlining your novel. My goals for 2013 are to write the first draft of my next book, a historical superhero story set in Regency, England, and tentatively titled Wayfarer. I also want to perhaps do a couple more webinars on story and scene structure, prep for the annotated Jane Eyre's launch in July, and start work on some workbooks for outlining your novel and structuring your novel. I hope your year is shaping up to be just as productive and fun. The January issue of my e-letter hit inboxes last week. It included more drawing winners, the article Forget Something in Your Story's Climax, and my response to a subscriber's question about how to write a first-person narrator's thoughts. If you're not receiving the e-letter and would like to, you can sign up for my mailing list on my website at helpingwritersbecomeauthors.com. You can read back issues online at helpingwritersbecomeauthors.com/resources. And now I hope you enjoy this week's podcast entitled How to Successfully Kill a Character, the Checklist. I love killing people. Or rather, I love killing characters. I love it when a noble character, or perhaps an ignoble one on his way to redemption, gets his grit on and sacrifices himself for someone he loves or for the larger cause. I love pulling on my own heartstrings, never mind my readers. I love the epicness a well-placed death can bring to an otherwise mundane story. Authors are always being advised to be mean to their characters. Often that meanness involves killing them off. And even as we may bawl over our beloved characters' deaths, most of us get a strange sort of fulfillment out of it. We gotta play tough and do whatever best serves the story, right? That, of course, begs the question, is killing off a character really the best way to serve your story? Before we answer that question, let's take a look at some reasons that may justify our decision to end a character's life, along with some not-so-good reasons. We could find many good reasons for snuffing even important characters, including it advances the plot. For example, Melanie in Gone with the Wind. It fulfills the doomed character's personal goal. For example, Obi-Wan in A New Hope. It motivates other characters. For example, Uncle Ben in Spider-Man. It's a fitting recompense for the character's actions up to this point. For example, Heathcliff in Wuthering Heights. It emphasizes the theme. For example, everybody in Flowers of War. It creates realism within the story world. For example, everybody in The Great Escape. And it removes an extraneous character. For example, Danny in Pearl Harbor. Some less worthy reasons for doing our characters dirty include shocking readers just for the sake of shocking them. Shock value isn't without its value, but not every author is Alfred Hitchcock and not every story is Psycho. Making readers sad just for the sake of making them sad. An old saw says, if they cry, they buy, but readers never appreciate being tortured without good reason. Removing an extraneous character. I know, I just said that was a good reason, but you have to double check this one. If the character is extraneous, then you better verify he belongs in the story in the first place. So now that we have a grip on what makes a character's death work within a story and what's sure to make it fail, we next have to consider what could end up being a crucial reason not to kill your character. Every character in a story should be there for a specific reason. He's there to enact a specific function, as I've discussed in recent blog posts about archetypes and roles. If he doesn't enact that function, then you have to question his purpose in the story, And if he does fill a role within your story, well, then ask yourself this: who's gonna fill that role if you kill him off? Dramatica authors Melanie Ann Phillips and Chris Huntley explain, unless the functions represented by the discontinued player reappear in another player, however, part of the story's argument will disappear at the point the original drops out. In the attempt to surprise an audience by killing off a major player, many an author has doomed an otherwise functional story form. Lucky for our sadistic little souls, roles and archetypes can shift from character to character or be shared by several characters. In short, when a character dies off, his death doesn't have to mean his role will be left vacant for the rest of the story. So with all this knowledge in mind, here's a quickie checklist for figuring out if you can get away with murder. You have scrutinized the list of good reasons to kill off a character. You have identified one of the reasons as being present in your plot, or come up with a new good reason. You have identified what role and archetype your character fills in your story. You have created and positioned another character or characters to fill the hole left in your story by the doomed character's death. Or you've ended your story in a thematically satisfying way that doesn't require the character's role to be perpetuated. Sometimes the death of a character can raise an ordinary story into something special. If you can justify a character's death, then go for it. Special? Maybe just around the corner. Thank you for listening to the Wordplay Podcast. To read a transcript of this episode, you can visit my website at helpingwritersbecomeauthors.com. And be sure to check back again next week.